Next level. Next level.
Tuning in or being here in person for the Elected Officials Transportation Committee meeting on August 14th. We have the town of Snowmass Village represented, as well as Picken County and Aspen. Don't know where the echo is coming from, but I do have an announcement to make. We are having problems with our internet. And so as others have as well, maybe everyone make sure your phone is off, or I'm not sure why this is picking up like this. We are being filmed by GrassRoots TV. It may be something that you can pick up on the YouTube stream right now or on your TV, but it is being filmed and will be rebroadcast later if it's not loading up to our feed locally here. So that's a challenge, but we are being filmed for the public record. The other is if anyone needs to get onto the internet here in the room, the City of Aspen guest is working, not the regular one, but the City of Aspen guest. And that code to get in is welcome with a capital W, welcome with an exclamation point at the end. And that would get you into the city guest internet, which seems to be working at this point in time. So with that, I'm going to ask that we call the roll. That would, who calls it for us? You call it, Linda, or you want me to call it?
That's you.
Okay, thank you so much. This is my first time chairing this committee, so I appreciate the patience everyone's offering me. We'll start with Picken County. Kelly McNichols Curry.
Here.
Patty Clapper. Francie Jacober is absent. Greg Poshman?
Here.
Here. And Jeff Woodruff, I believe you are online.
I'm here, thank you.
Thank you very much for attending and making that effort. We appreciate it. Town of Snowmass Village, Mayor Alyssa Schenk.
Here.
Cecily D'Angelo, online.
She's on, but she was in like a view only.
Okay, I see her hand up. I don't know if you can undo your microphone or whether I undo your microphone.
I'm here.
Okay, great. Hey, thank you. We saw you.
That worked. This is just a different setting. It seems like almost like a public view only setting that I'm on right now.
I think it's because we're having these internet problems. I'm not sure
Okay.
what or why is going on. But just yell out if I forget either you or Jeff, or you have things to say.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much. And then where are we? We have Tom Fritzstein.
Here.
We have Britta Gustafsson.
Here.
And we have Susan, sorry if I murdered that pronunciation, Susan Marolt.
Here.
Great, thank you. Aspen City Council, Mayor Richards, I'm here. Christine Benedetti.
Here.
John Doyle.
Here.
Sam Rose is not going to be here. He is out of the country right now attending a wedding. And perhaps Bill Guth will join us shortly. But we do have a quorum of 3 on the Aspen City Council. So the meeting has been called to order. We've called the roll, and I will call to order that meeting. There's something that we're doing for the public as much as for ourselves to take a look at the E.O.T.C. vision and mission before Linda pulls up the agenda for the meeting. We envision the Roaring Fork Valley as the embodiment of a sustainable transportation system, emphasizing mass transit and mobility that contributes to the happiness and well-being of residents and visitors. The E.O.T.C. mission is to work collectively to reduce and manage the volume of vehicles on the road and parking system, and continue to develop and support a comprehensive, multimodal, long-range strategy that will ensure a convenient, equitable, and efficient transportation system for the Roaring Fork Valley. The summary of the state statute and the ballot requirements, the .05 county transit and sales and use tax shall be used for the purpose of financing, constructing, operating, and managing a public fixed route mass transportation system within the Roaring Fork Valley. So that's what we've always been here for and about. And over the decades since this group was formed under Mayor Hooker and Mayor Bennett, I think a lot has been accomplished. I will turn the agenda over to you now, Linda. Thank you very much.
So this is our agenda for the day. Thank you. I'm Linda Dupriest, Regional Transportation Director for the E.O.T.C.
Our next item is approval of the decisions reached.
Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Is there a motion for the decisions reached at the last meeting, which I was not an attendee at?
I'll do it, so moved.
I'll second.
Okay, and let me call the roll. Do we have to do these individually by name or as a whole board?
It varies.
It varies, okay. Snowmass Village, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Pitkin County, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Aye.
And Kelly, Patty, you say aye? Okay. And the City of Aspen, I will abstain, or no, I can't abstain, we won't have a quorum.
You were there, but you couldn't participate in the vote on that day because you weren't in.
Sworn in yet.
Yeah.
Okay. I will vote on the matter as well. City of Aspen, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you very much. We will now move to the public comment for items not on the agenda. These are limited to 3 minutes each. Are there any members of the public here to make public comment? Sir, please come forward and just identify your name. Linda, if you'll make sure he has a microphone that's working, that'd be great.
Hello.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Sam Gimas, and I live in Carbondale, Colorado. I've lived here for 16 years, and I've come up to either REFT or Pitkin County or Aspen or E.O.T.C in the last meeting and talk about these about 100 solutions I have for a comprehensive, multimodal, long-term, long-distance plan for the valley. But I'm not going to talk about that much today. I'm here just to make some friends, because I wanted to talk to one of you or all of you. So the last E.O.T.C meeting, I learned so much. It was so cool. Tons of information. My 3 favorite parts starts when Councilman Friedstein puts his hands in the air and says, "We've been talking about this for 30 years. When are we going to do something?" I was like, yes, someone said it out loud. And I agree with you, right? It's frustrating. But I think the bridge is kind of a red herring, taking too much of our attention, because what Jacobs Engineering presented was most of the damage being done in terms of traffic congestion comes from down valley, and we know that already. So on this list, I have 100 actionable items. Some of them are just signs and paint, and some of them are, bridges, roads, construction. Speaking of signs and paint, the other second favorite part of that meeting was when Mayor Richards responded to Councilman Friedstein, and sincerely, your eloquent consciousness flow of thought, you talked for like 10 minutes, and it was genius. I'm being sincere. You're such a smart person. And what you've done already in the town, what I think was your initiative, was the paint and the signs that are very, very effective. I don't live in Aspen city limits. If I did, I would vote for you again. So I've got someone who we all want to do something, but we have 2 powerful players. Everyone in this room is a powerful player, but let's be real. So my third favorite thing, the Jacobs Engineering presentation. So at the end, we need Jacobs Engineering. They made $11 billion last year. They know the head of department for every Department of Transportation. We need them a part of this, but I think we gave them the wrong mission. All those traffic percentages flowing, I think that doesn't really matter because it's just too much. It doesn't matter which way it's going. It's just too much, and we need to reduce the traffic. So, where was I going with this? Oh, I realized how much we spent on that. And for the last 2.5 years, I've been trying to give away my 100 solutions for free. And I'm proud of myself. I've talked about this with a lot of people, and the only reason I'm here today is because I know someone in every single one of your offices that are giving me the times and dates to be here. Hey, keep doing this. Keep doing this. You're doing a good job. And I've built a network from zero over the last 2.5 years, and I think it should be considered. I'll sell it to you for half the price of what you paid Jacobs Engineering. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, everybody.
Thank you. Just to let you know, I think all the previous Jacobs Engineering work was ordered by the past council when they were looking at various other options. That work will be very informative for us going forward with the reevaluation of the PA. But I'm wondering if you can give your phone number to Linda up there or something. I'd be happy to sit down with you and listen to the 100 ideas and talk to you about those.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Mayor. That made my 2.5 years well worth it.
Okay, so give Linda the number. She'll give it to me after the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Additional public comments? Wait, do I see anyone? Do I see? Oh, it's you, Tony. Yeah, come on up, come on up.
There's a surprise.
Yeah, just give it a second.
Sorry.
Okay.
No, you're good, honey.
take
I
that
don't
back
know if
there
I
for
can follow his 3-minute public comment there. He did such a great job.
Okay.
I think he's more enthusiastic than I am.
Yeah, there we go. Okay,
But
3
anyway,
minutes, and identify yourself for the record.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Richards. For the record, my name is Toni Kronberg, and believe it or not, this is my favorite group to come to. For the last 50 years that I've been coming to meetings, the Elected Officials Transportation Committee has always been my favorite one, and I think I've only missed 1 or 2 meetings throughout that whole time. But what I wanted to give a big thank you, and I'm really sorry to see her go, is Jen Uten. And as you know, she was...
She still has one more presentation to make, so come on.
Okay. As we know, she was the senior project manager for the entrance to Aspen, and I know that we never would have gotten this far along if it wasn't for her organizational skills, pulling everyone together, listening, sorting things out. I've tried the best I can to see if we can keep her here for another 10 years. You all got the email I sent out, all those questions. I was convinced that she'd have to answer every single one of them, and that would keep her here for the next 10 years, but she politely declined. So the next thing is that I also wanted to give a thanks to the Aspen Times and the Aspen Daily News because I wrote 2 articles on the aerial connection, the presentation that SE Engineering did to the 21st Century Transportation Coalition. Then one of the things that Kent left with the group is that we have one question: do we have a viable corridor? We can't answer any other questions until we know if we have a viable corridor. Rachel, thank you so much for bringing forward the ballot question. The E.O.T.C. money cannot be used for a feasibility study for an aerial connection. It can only be used for financing, constructing, operating, and managing it. So I am going to take on the effort of, I already have some pledges about pulling together the money to do the feasibility study. Believe it or not, it's only $40,000 to $50,000, and in this town, that's like the price of 4 handbags. So I'm convinced that it'll be very easy to finish off the pledges. And we've had so many questions about where do we park cars, but we don't need any of those questions right now because we don't know if we have a viable corridor. And the viable corridor, what we would be looking at is from Brush Creek Park and Ride to the airport, Lumberyard Housing, Buttermilk, Ruby Park, Highlands, the schools, Snowmass Rec Center, Snowmass Town Center, Snowmass Base Village, and Snowmass Mall. So that's my gift to the Elected Officials Transportation Committee. Yet another project.
Tony, are you willing to tell us who your backers are?
Not at this point because they're just pledges, but I will make that publicly, and I'll have a sign-up sheet and do little receipts with everyone, so it'll be publicly, everyone will
I think
know.
that's just important so that for public disclosure and transparency, so when information comes in, people know I can trust it.
Right, and people are really excited about it, and I do think they want to have their names associated with it because, Rachel, as you've said many times, that infrastructure, what we have right now as Jacobs and Pearson, all the reports that we have, nothing's going to fix the traffic coming into the entrance to Aspen.
It's not quite what I've said, but I've said
That's pretty-
infrastructure alone, it doesn't solve congestion
Right.
problems. Okay,
So, but-
thank you very
okay.
much.
All right, thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Okay, we will now turn the agenda over to Linda to present the first item, the Brush Creek Park and Ride Monitoring and Management Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In 2024, we initiated, the funding for it, we initiated in 2023 after we had finished the improvement project, the federally funded improvement project at Brush Creek. We, our staff, with the support of the E.O.T.C., moved forward with analyzing how we can make everything work better out there, to optimize the use of the lot for shifting cars from driving to transit, and also look at some of the public safety and security issues that we had had out there for quite some time. So we initiated this study. I have our consultant, Bill Delo, who's with DJNA, who was our consultant on the project, and he's going to present our findings and then our recommendations that we'll be asking you all to support to move forward. I also believe that Sheriff Buglioni and Officer Lathrop from Picken County are trying to access the meeting. I don't know that they have with everything that's going on.
I saw them as participants. I'm not sure if we've set it up so they can speak. Do you know, the county sheriff and Parker Lathrop are on as audience, but they would probably want to be able to speak at this.
Yeah, he says, I just heard from the sheriff, I'm on the public side. I'm not sure what that means.
Okay, they should be able to participate.
I think that's what Cecily said.
They're definitely online. Their microphones are off,
Okay,
but they're watching.
so I'm going to take it away, Bill.
Great. Thank you, Linda. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and members of the board. Bill Delo at DJNA, and I was the project manager on the consultant side for the preparation of the Brush Creek Park and Ride Monitoring and Management Plan. Really happy to be here this afternoon and provide you an overview of the study and the process that we went through to develop the recommendations. So our overall purpose of this study was to develop strategies, recommendations, ideas to enhance operation, management, and monitoring at the Brush Creek Park and Ride. Really, as part of this, it's really focused on achieving those objectives, those goals of the E.O.T.C. That were outlined at the beginning of the meeting and that we've shown several here on this slide, promoting that modal shift, getting people out of their vehicles into multimodal modes, whether that's walking, biking, or taking transit. A few others that I'll highlight that I think are important and kind of unique to the Park and Ride. One is looking for ways to enhance transit service and connections to the transit service that's operated by RAFTA and by the town of Snowmass Village. And then in the lower right, that optimizing site enforcement, monitoring for public safety. We heard a lot from the community through our surveys, some concerns about public safety at the facility. It's something in conversations with Linda we talked about, as well as conversations with the county sheriff as well. So looking for strategies that would address some of the safety concerns and enforcement at the Park and Ride. So we started this study effort with data collection on two different dates in the latter part of 2024. The first was August 31st during the Jazz Aspen Snowmass event during that weekend to collect during a peak event weekend, understand what parking demand and operations are during that type of event. And then Thursday, September 26th, so an early fall date, gave us a bit of a typical weekday condition, that commute condition and kind of that typical commute use for the Brush Creek Park and Ride. On both dates, we conducted 24-hour counts from midnight to midnight throughout that day to understand when people were coming and going out of the facility and how long they were staying within the Park and Ride. So this first graph here shows parking demand for the August 31st date during the Jazz Fest. The blue line represents total parking demand at the facility, and then the orange line is the demand that was overflow, so beyond the 400 paved parking spaces that are present within the lot. So those two lines aren't additive, they're kind of part of each other. The orange is part of the blue. But overall, we saw a peak parking demand of just over 800 vehicles in the early evening, kind of that 5 to 6 p.m. time period, really kind of in the middle of the performances in the event. And it slowly built through the day as we moved up towards the concert and set times for the different artists that were performing. But it does show that the facility with the overflow lots can accommodate quite a few vehicles, over 800, and have those individuals shuttled to and from the different venues. This second chart shows the typical day, that Thursday, September 26th, the parking demand there. So a much lower overall demand as we're dealing with kind of a typical commute day, and also a fall day, which is a bit of the shoulder season. So we would expect typically lower demand within the lot. About 140, 150 cars was the peak demand. At the bottom there in green, you'll see what we've titled carpool lot movements. These are vehicles that went to the kiosk that's on site to get a carpool permit for the city of Aspen, and then be able to drive into the city and use that permit. So you can see a great peak in that, or kind of the peak demand for that in the 6 to 8 in the morning time period as folks are commuting into Aspen and getting those permits. So this next chart shows for that September 26th date, the typical day parking dwell time. So this is how long a car spent in the lot. As we collected the data, we had video cameras at the entrance to the lot that collected license plate information. So our count firm was able to collect that information and know when cars entered and when they left. So you can see the peak demand kind of overall is that carpool movement as people are coming in and getting that carpool permit and then leaving. There's also a fair amount of demand of people entering the lot, staying for less than a half an hour and then leaving again. We think this could be people who are carpooling and maybe not picking up the permit, people who maybe enter the lot just for some other use, such as texting on their phone, grabbing a bite to eat, something like that throughout the day. And then the rest of the distribution you see throughout the day with what you would expect to be some typical peaks, 6 to 7 hours, 10 to 11 hours, 11 to 12 hours as people have a work day somewhere within Aspen or Snowmass Village.
I'd like to ask a question on that one point. Someone pointed out to me that all the cars making a left into the intercept lot to pick up a carpool pass and then getting back in line to turn left to go into town triggers the traffic signal more often and creates more of a pinch point, and that we are creating a problem by having the carpool passes distributed there. Is that something that we can take a look at, or you observed as well?
Yeah, I would agree with that observation. It is two left turns or inefficient movements for how that signal would operate, and so in a more ideal situation, you would have people maybe not having to transfer through a traffic signal, making those conflicting movements of left turns to be able to access the kiosks and those permits. I
just think it's something we should all take a look at as we're trying to resolve the pinch point issues. Thank you.
This slide just highlights the different transit routes that serve the Brush Creek Park and Ride. There's 6 routes in total, operated both by the town of Snowmass Village as well as RAFTA. So the next few slides talk a little bit about the transit ridership information that we collected from RAFTA and from Snowmass Village. This first slide is RAFTA boarding and alighting data for the Park and Ride from 2023 and 2024. Some of the key takeaways from this slide, we've highlighted here in the purple or magenta color, trips to Glenwood Springs. So these are down valley trips, people boarding the bus and then heading down valley. In the orange, trips up to Snowmass Village, and green trips to Aspen. This data was really helpful just in understanding peak seasonality of transit ridership. So we see the peaks during the winter, during the summer, as we would expect when there's higher visitation, a lot more construction activity during the summer, and a lot more ridership along the RAFTA routes during those times compared to the shoulder seasons in the spring and fall.
I have a question about that. How do you explain the discrepancies in the morning and evening numbers?
So there's.
Put your mic forward,
Oh,
make
yeah.
sure a green light is on one of them.
Yeah.
There you go.
Different room, different color. How do you explain the discrepancies on the same day of morning and evening travel?
Yeah, and time within month. So part of it is how RAFTA collects their data. This is boarding and alighting data specifically at Brush Creek. So we only have kind of one piece of the picture in terms of, where people might have originated their trip or where they were ultimately destined for. So we're really just kind of have a snapshot of their trip. So I don't necessarily have the detail to say, maybe it's because people are driving in and taking the bus in the morning, but maybe they have a different way to get home in the afternoon. There could be a lot of variables in that, and we just don't have enough data from the RAFTA information to know for sure exactly there.
So it's a lot. You have 350 more riders in the evening on August 23rd than in the morning.
Where'd they come from?
No,
Where are
that's
they
a
going?
great question for us to kind of look at with RAFTA going forward to say, how can we try to normalize or answer these questions about the data?
Yeah, provide some additional detail in the data as
Yeah.
well, correct.
Thank you. Great question.
This next slide highlights data that we received from Snowmass Village Shuttle. This was survey information. The shuttle, at different times during the year, the drivers will ask riders who are disembarking at the Brush Creek Park and Ride what their ultimate destination is, where they're heading to after they go to the Park and Ride. A significant number of people are heading to Aspen, so I think one of the interesting pieces of information that we saw is there's a fair amount of commute back and forth, whether that's employer commute, visitor commute, but travel back and forth between Snowmass Village and Aspen and connections through the Brush Creek Park and Ride. Some of these other pieces of the pie there on the left, the different colors, a lot of those are probably pretty similar in trips that are ultimately heading down valley. People who either identified that they were heading to the Park and Ride to get in their car or heading down valley, and they may be taking RAFTA to do that, or they may also be getting in their car and heading down valley as well. Key part of our kind of research and look at what we were doing was talking to peer agencies and starting to understand how other agencies managed similar park and ride facilities that served mountain towns, resort communities, and ski resorts. And so we talked to 3 different operators. First was Teton Village up near Jackson, Wyoming. Second was the city of Steamboat Springs, which operates park and ride along US 40 as well as their own transit service within town. And then the Utah Transit Authority, which is a much larger operator, but they operate transit services and serve several different ski resorts in and around the Salt Lake Valley. Some of the key items that we learned from these interviews that we really felt were good items to incorporate and carry forward as recommendations for the Brush Creek Park and Ride include the creation of detailed special event plans. So understanding when you have a special event, it's going to be utilizing the Park and Ride, getting as much details as possible for that in terms of amount of demand, the need for the use of the Park and Ride by trucks and other commercial vehicles that are maybe associated with that event, and so forth. There's different approaches to whether maintenance is contracted or in-house. No real preference, I think, based upon agencies. It's really a question of whether they'd like to have that responsibility themselves or not. One thing that was consistent was enforcement of overnight parking. All 3 peer agencies that we talked to do not allow overnight parking within their lots. They have a defined period that they end it, anywhere from midnight to 3 a.m., depending on the use patterns and who's utilizing the lot. Some other items that each of these agencies are looking at for long-term are ways to reserve parking within the facilities, develop long-term parking programs where people may have permits to be able to park overnight, and that can be monitored and controlled, and then the implementation of different parking technologies, both to understand parking demand as well as to provide information to people who are using the facility.
I have a question. By long-term parking program, is that meaning like you buy a parking permit for a long period of time, but you can't park overnight? I don't really understand.
So for the long-term parking programs, yes. So typically they do not allow overnight parking unless there's a permit.
Oh, gotcha.
And what it could be is it could be a 2 to 3 day permit, could be a week-long permit for a particular special event, or maybe if there's other activities that could be served by the park and ride
Okay.
outside of the typical commute.
Thanks.
As part of our community engagement, we conducted a public survey online during April 2025. This slide just highlights the different notices and avenues we used to get the word out about the survey during that month. We had worked with the county public relations staff and utilized a variation of digital, print, and radio advertising and posts, both in English and Spanish, to get the word out about the survey. We received 143 responses. 24 of those were Spanish. So not a huge number, but given we have a facility that's a bit remote, it's not really located within any particular community, it can be hard to generate some excitement from individuals. But I do think from that 143 people that we participated, we did get really good feedback and some interesting ideas for the facility itself. Just a little bit of information in terms of what we heard from the survey, an interest in amenities, just highlighting a couple at the top of this facility amenities for the park and ride, an interest in more frequent transit service serving the park and ride facility, an improvement on site, improving the restrooms on site and access to those, and cleanliness of those. An interesting one that goes to the last 2 slides ago is an interest in long-term airport parking and a direct shuttle to the airport. And then an interest also in just more parking in general, I think especially during peak uses and during events as well. We also asked about interest in different technologies that could be available for individuals as they use the park and ride. There's a lot of interest in real-time parking occupancy information that could be communicated to individual smartphones, interest in traffic signal priority for the buses at the Highway 82 Brush Creek Road intersection, so the buses are able to travel and make those 2 left turns through the intersection more efficiently and more quickly. As well as interest in real-time parking occupancy signage along Highway 82. And so this could use the existing message signs that are in place along the highway to communicate that information to people as they approach the park and ride. So we'll wrap up the presentation, talk a little bit about the recommendations that are in the report. There are 6 kind of key areas that we focused on with the recommendations that are presented. Revising or updating the site management practices, improving the process for permitting special events, addressing overnight parking and public safety, wayfinding and information related to parking availability, revisiting the on-site infrastructure and operations, and then enhancing access to transit services. One set of recommendations that I'll highlight relate to the enforcement. One key recommendations that we have is implementing a no overnight parking regulation. This would be a change from the existing 24-hour limit that's out there and present today. It's consistent with the peer review that we did, and we do believe that it would be easier and more efficient to enforce as well than a 24-hour limit. Second recommendations would involve transferring the enforcement responsibilities that are currently the responsibility of the city of Aspen to Pitkin County and the E.O.T.C. With the idea that the E.O.T.C. is responsible for management of the Buttermilk Park and Ride, also has offices that are a bit closer to the Brush Creek Park and Ride. This could be a way to make that enforcement and that operation more efficient. And then also establish an enforcement advisory group that could be kind of a subcommittee or subgroup of the E.O.T.C. to address various different issues around the displacement of campers at the facility, how the county law enforcement and human services communicate about enforcement at the facility, and then look for ways to implement a pilot program for that change of that enforcement and the parking limitation for the overnight parking. Also wanted to highlight a few items related to the technology improvements. There's 2 packages that are recommended within the report, kind of a phased implementation of technology. The first is the baseline monitoring and surveillance, which is focused on the implementation of surveillance cameras to monitor parking occupancy at the facility and operations, and then the addition of more enforcement signage and a change in that enforcement signage at the facility. Over time, there would be the implementation of Package 2, which is more of a smart parking technology system that would introduce license plate reader cameras and a way to better track people entering and exiting the facility, their duration of stay, and how the facility is used. This not only helps with enforcement, but also helps in increasing the data that's available for how the facility is used throughout the year and in different seasons. So the next steps that are identified within the report, first is revising the intergovernmental agreement to transfer the responsibility for enforcement and operations from the city of Aspen to the county and the E.O.T.C. Looking for ways, potentially through a visioning workshop to build on the recommendations in this document and identify short-term and long-term goals, really prioritize those recommendations for improvement. Setting up a reoccurring stakeholder meeting, so kind of making sure that the Brush Creek and Ride Brush Creek Park and Ride stays at the front of mind for everybody, and those operations are continually revisited, and that the facility is managed appropriately over time. Pursuing funding for the implementation of the different strategies, implementing those strategies, and then monitoring the effectiveness over time. And with that, that concludes the presentation. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you. Well, who has questions or comments?
I have questions.
Susan? Yeah.
I just wondered what why there's package 1 and package 2, and you recommend that you do the package 1, the surveillance cameras first, and not just straight to package 2, and maybe that's, funding or whatnot, but I just wondered why.
Yeah, so really it is funding related. It's looking for a way, kind of with package 1, something that could be a lower cost implementation as a first step to improve that monitoring enforcement, and then the ability to bring on more advanced technology as part of package 2. They certainly could be implemented together if sufficient funding was available.
I think we were also wondering if there would be some sensitivity to a space that's completely sort of unregulated and sort of free. If we started,
Just boom.
surveilling it, if that would feel like too much to some members of the public, we could phase it in or look at different ways we could manage things out there.
Okay, thank you. Very good question. Do I see other hands up over there? No. Anyone from the side of the room?
I have two.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Tom.
Just going back to that issue. Oh,
Yeah, green light.
It's on. If we implement phase 1, is there any, and then we move to a phase 2, is there any of the equipment that we purchased in phase 1 that we no longer use, or is it all incremental add?
It likely would be an incremental add.
Okay.
So they're designed to build upon each other.
All right, the other question, you're recommending that the enforcement of the lot move from the city of Aspen to the county. What does the county say about that? Just a question.
I was thinking about that.
Just curious.
All in favor?
Yeah. And
County /E.O.T.C.
Oh, yeah.
meaning me. And our law enforcement partners on the call might want to chime in. The City of Aspen's parking department has traditionally gone out and done enforcement, and then if there's towing that needs to happen or, more law enforcement is needed, then they turn it over to the county because it's in county jurisdiction. The city has so much on its plate just managing its parking within the town, in the city limits, that it's been very difficult for them, challenging for them to have to, their staff to have to go past the roundabout, go out there daily and do that enforcement. It just made sense to locate that outside of the city and have the county take it over with me probably managing it, if you all agree to that.
And Linda Parker's sitting right behind you.
Oh, you made it?
Please, jump on up, Parker. And make sure his green light is on. There you go.
You're on.
Thank you.
So in terms of the intercept lot, it's been kind of a joint management in the past as the city parking has gotten busy in town and staffing has been a challenge. But in the same way for us, we do what we can when we can. And so it's a balance, but we also realize we had a time not that long ago where that lot kind of ran away from both of us and ended up with a lot more problems than either the city or us could deal with. It took a long time to kind of bring it back into a manageable alignment. So it does take time. That lot is very heavily used. Beyond just the commuter aspect of it, you look at the camping that occurs, whether it's the overnight van life, it's special event. You see the Ragnar races when they happen in Snowmass. That lot fills full of campers then as well. We have long-term camping, not just in the lot, but in the areas in the open space around the lot. So it does require probably more time than we have in the sheriff's office with our current staffing to manage as well. So, and we've tried to again brainstorm solutions as well that we can use technology to kind of help approach some challenges in there. But it's the biggest lot in the Upper Valley, and it requires a lot of attention.
Thank you for that, Parker. We appreciate it. So it kind of sounds like, has the Sheriff's Department and the county commissioners talked about this proposal at all, or is this kind of new to everybody? Patty?
Yeah, this is new, and I want to add to the newness.
Okay.
This is great information for us, for the county side, because we're in the midst of discussing the ownership of this parcel with the Colorado Department of Transportation. And if that is to come to fruition, we're going to have a new discussion because of management and issues such as overnight camping spaces, which I think we're all feeling a need for at certain times, be they special event related or not, and airport parking opportunities, shuttle service to and from the airport. There's a lot of things in the conversation if the county is to move forward with the ownership issue. So this is, I think, my opinion in looking at this information, is this is a good basis for us to start the discussion we're going to need to have with the city, with SNOMES, with E.O.T.C, as to the uses in management, enforcement, et cetera out there.
Very good. Thank you. Kelly, did you have to add to that?
Yeah.
And make sure green. You can leave them on green. It's,
I was chomping on granola before. I guess I would say that, we have had some discussions about this relative to like broader parking conversations that we've had. We brought on a new company to help manage other lots that the county owns and manages, Buttermilk, Health and Human Services. And so, this discussion about Brush Creek has always been like, yes, maybe, but we have these other conversations that have to take place relative to ownership and partnership and, transitioning from a city to a county or E.O.T.C structure. So I'm not like shocked by this, if that's, part of the question. Is this the first time we're seeing this? No, it's come up in other things, but there are other preceding conversations that kind of have to take place, which is to say we've been a partner for a long time and have had a lot of activity out there on the Brush Creek Park and Ride, so none of those issues are kind of new.
I appreciate that. How much do we budget currently for the management of the Brush Creek?
I don't know what the city of Aspen's internal costs are for the enforcement that they've been doing, but E.O.T.C does pay, snow removal bills, trash pickup. It's less than $100,000 a year.
Okay, so we'd want to start combining those costs with the personnel or the actual cost of the enforcement or just checking in. So that's something we would need a real estimate on in order to even take this a step further with the county. And I agree with both Patty and Kelly with what they're explaining about details that really need to be worked out, a lot of different items. The parking right now is for 400 cars that are paved, but it can be increased to more cars. I just kind of pointing out what some of us who are sitting on the 21st Century Transportation Committee, their goal is to get 5,000 cars a day off the road. And per Francine, it's better to catch them down valley much further than the Brush Creek intercept lot. She said, if you're just planning on maximizing Brush Creek, you're not doing anything about the traffic jam in Basalt or El Jebel or Glenwood Springs, which also catch the bus up, quite a bit. So I'll leave it at that, but that is something that has been brought up is if or when we might need to pave more spaces, and I fully agree with the restroom comment. I was around back in the day and supported the funding to have flush toilets there to begin with. And it was like, no, that's too expensive. Let's just do porta potties. And it's like, if you're commuting with kids or you've been skiing, and then there's a porta potty, even a nice one, it's just wrong. And now it's costing us probably 10 times what it would have cost to put it in during the original construction. So, but it's a necessary amenity if you really want people to ride the bus. So, Mr. Peacock.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to add to your comments. We totally agree. More detail needs to come back. And I just want to note that that full financial liability does not necessarily fall to the entities at this table. As we talk about different uses and such, as we found in managing our other parking lots, there will be revenue opportunities associated with some of it. Some of it you obviously want to keep without revenue attached to it to encourage the intercept that we talked about. But it is on our radar screen that we need to come back with a fully vetted plan when we're ready to do that. And we're getting some experience in our other lots to inform that.
Very good. Thank you very much. Additional comments or questions on this? I mean, there's not a request right now for additional funding for anything, or is there?
Our request now is just to have the direction to move forward, that you all are deciding to do this management and enforcement out there to prohibit camping and overnight parking and those strategies, and then we'll come back with more detail with what that will cost and the processes that we'll put in place in 2026. So we'll come back with those firmer cost estimates for you all to approve in October, at our October meeting for our 2026 work plan. But for now, we just need a vote on, is this the direction we want to go out there?
Okay, well, let me just make a real quick comment. I think that until the county has had a time to work out their plan, I don't know that we want to start expending money for different types of equipment yet until the county is, until we know who's going to be monitoring them, who's going to be using them, where does the data go?
Well, if I can make a comment on that,
Yeah.
Regardless of at what point we officially take over the parking lot from CDOT, we still have a deed with them to manage it.
Right.
So we can go ahead and do any management we want out there that's within the current rules of the CDOT agreement, even before we technically own it.
Or the
Can I
county
jump in a
owns it.
second? Can you hear me?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you. Parker, commissioners, you guys,
And just identify yourself for the record, so we
I'm sorry.
we recognize the voice.
County Sheriff.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have to kind of, go over exactly what's going to be needed out there. And I'll say how we're going to take that on as the sheriff's office agree to all that. One thing about the recommendations, the no overnight parking. One thing that concerns me about that is people who are taking the bus home because they drank. I don't want to see a decrease in DUI wrecks or DUIs, quite frankly. So maybe we come up with something else, maybe no 2 consecutive nights of overnight parking. That's just my 2 cents on that.
Thank you. That's something I was thinking about a little bit as well, so very good point.
And one of our
Sheriff.
recommendations is to form a task force of groups of working with, some of the bars and restaurants that have those employees that need to be there late at night, that we could have some permit system for those folks that need to do that. So that'd be part of the stakeholder group we would form.
Okay. Thank you. Kelly, you had a comment?
Yeah, I'd like some clarity. The way these are presented in the executive summary, they are parallel. So I'm just wondering, are they running, should we think of them as running in parallel? Because I'm not quite sure how to think about recommendations versus next steps. Do the recommendations get folded into the next steps? Do we have to do all the next steps before we figure out whether, because some are tactical and some are strategic, and I'm just unclear how these translate into a work plan, I guess.
The next steps, they're basically the same thing, right?
But yeah, the next steps are really how you can get to the recommendations. So the next steps, I think, are really the, what we're here this evening kind of asking the board is, kind of that approval to proceed with those next steps to start detailing out those recommendations in terms of which ones move forward. So the recommendations right now are kind of a menu that can be kind of selected from, but there's more discussion, more kind of agreement that needs to be happened before any of those recommendations really move forward.
Can we pop the recommendations back up on the screen?
Yeah, that'd be great. So if I'm just to, sometimes I can be very mechanical in my thinking of like, well, what comes first? What comes next? How do I plan for this? So are we saying that like before we do wayfinding, we're going to have a visioning workshop? Is that sort of how I should think about these tying together? Like I'm kind of like, well, improving the special event permitting process. I'm not clear on how much we need to weigh in on, like, what decision points require E.O.T.C. policy decision as opposed to just like, improve the permitting process. You guys are the ones running it. I'm sure you know how to make it better. So, again, it'd be helpful for me to understand how these tactical recommendations are running into kind of these more strategic next steps about an IGA, visioning, coordinating, pursuing funding.
The improving the special event process and the site management leadership and practices, changing those are housekeeping details. The key next steps would be forming the stakeholder group to deal with, like the question Sheriff Bolioni brought up about, if we say we're not going to allow any overnight parking, what does that do about the bar worker who comes back late at night? So that would be the first step, is making sure we're getting all of those concerns. And I'd start working on that next couple of months. And also the law enforcement group that would also advise us on those same types of things would start right away. And then we would go and get the cost estimate, either just for the technology piece. Also, we have spoken with the company that's managing the parking at Buttermilk and the airport now. We'd have to do an RFP to get that, but we've gotten some advice on how they might manage it or how a company might manage it. So those three things would be the next steps.
And again, we've already had first reading on ownership, and we were supposed to have second reading last night, but it's been continued to
27th.
another date,
27th.
the 27th of the month. So the county, so this may change in the next month, 6 weeks or whatever it takes for us to get there. So again, I don't want us to be creating plans that we change a week later. So I think we need to take this information, which again is very, very helpful, and if the county takes over ownership, again, it leaves us a lot of options, especially the overnight parking issue, and other uses we could do out there for revenue to keep the parking lot free for commuters, and to do bathrooms, because we need, septic, because we don't have water and sewer out there, we don't have the infrastructure. But so there's some things we need to proceed, but with caution, because some things can change significantly or just tweaked between now and the county taking over ownership.
Thank you, Patty. I think that's well said. Just to make sure we get to keep on time, and we started a little bit late, perhaps not a formal vote, but some straw poll direction would be helpful, such as, does this group believe we should prohibit camping at the Brush Creek intercept lot? Is that a yes or a no? Or are you saying we should wait on all of these?
Well, I don't know what's your definition of camping. Is that somebody who stays for one night because they were too inebriated to drive home? Or is that somebody who sets up a
I'm
tent?
talking about setting up a campsite, not.
I think that needs to be further vetted before I think it's something we need to look into, the possibility of a 2 or 3 night stay with a permit, and you can only stay 3 nights in 1 week. You can't keep renewing. There's a lot of, I think, discussion and details that need to go into it, because we're having people camp around the city and the county now who are finding great places to camp because they don't have any other opportunities or options. So that's a tough one for me to answer.
It is a tough one, and I agree. It's either do you start accommodating it, and so suddenly you have 50 cars out there camping, or do you limit it and have other issues from limiting it? Parker, you have a comment?
I just want to add, if you guys go down the road of the camping, where we struggle is in Colorado state law, there's no legal definition of camping, so we go off of a federal definition, which is aimed towards the national forest. So if you go down that road of what camping is, please work to
We
establish
need to
it.
make our own definition.
100%, because that allows us to enforce what that is.
That's a great point. Thank you for throwing that in there. Kelly?
We're also like a week out from hearing our homelessness strategies presentation. And so I'm a little hesitant to say, like, today we're going to say no, and then we're going to be presented with some discussion that might make us change our minds, you know? So,
Okay.
like, I just think maybe that one is a little sticky. There's probably easier ones that we could tackle.
I guess what I'm kind of hearing is that perhaps we should plan on a longer October meeting so we can go through this a little more thoroughly and then give firm direction with some votes. But any other questions that we have about this can be funneled through Linda, or information that we need. You know, I would really want to know who we're thinking of as a task force. Are we thinking of this should be our parking departments, whoever our managers assign, or are you talking about elected officials being the task force or part of the task force? And, but I don't know that we need to solve that right here and right now. But I think continuing to look at some of these other issues, again, perhaps where you pick up your carpool pass, is that really causing problems out there? And it was moved from the airport because it was causing problems there. And, you know, you can pick them up in town, but we should think about, is there another location that doesn't have one person after another triggering that light? John?
Yeah, I know the answer to this is probably no, but it seems a logical place would be to have it right across the street somewhere on the Cozy Point property.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look. There's a lot of.
And I'm sure there's reasons why that.
Drive through.
They could be the only ones that use
Yeah,
this.
so we'll continue to take some looks at that. Tom?
Yeah, I mean, as a suggestion of a way forward, I think it'd be good sense to just sort of get a poll. I like a lot of what I heard today, and I think it's going in a good direction. But I agree that there's a lot of decisions that are going to precede this that will inform it, and also some more thought about many of these issues would be very helpful for an October meeting. So maybe you want to get a sense of the room, if generally people are in agreement with where we're going, and then I'm in agreement that, you know, let's make October a longer meeting, really delve into the weeds on this, yeah.
Okay. How do others feel? Greg?
I think I agree with Tom. Back when we were having trouble getting the quorums with the E.O.T.C, we realized that we really only need to have one meeting per year, have to have one meeting per year to authorize the budget. But subcommittees can meet whenever and however they want.
Mm-hmm.
It would be an awful lot easier to get stuff done if everyone didn't have to show up to be here. And so I'm going to propose that we create subcommittees from this board, perhaps to address some of those issues. And I don't know if we can break it up right now. I don't know if I'm ready to commit to one thing or another or leave something out. But perhaps we could actually be more effective by putting subsets of this group to work on things.
Yeah. I would agree, but I'm kind of like, who really, do we as elected officials have a lot of transportation management experience, or do we want staff to be part of that subcommittee? I don't know who we want to be and what the mission of that subcommittee would be till we get there. I don't mean to go too far off center here, but I know I've mentioned it to a few people that I think that we should think as the E.O.T.C about having a retreat in 2026, early 2026. I think it's been a number of years since this organization has had any sort of retreat to focus on what should be our priorities, where do our resources go, what, you know, subcommittees should we set up, things like that. And so I think that at the end of the meeting under board comments, we can come back to that and see if that's what we really should do, and that would give Linda direction to prepare for a retreat in the 2026 budget, and for all of us then to think about the times and how we'd like that structured. It seems like the last retreats have all been about how we spend the half penny as opposed to what we want to get done. And there's just brand new opportunities for this group to engage on the pinch points all across, work with the 21st Century Coalition, work with the entrance to Aspen. I think you all will be involved at some level for public comments and for helping inform the reevaluation of the PA. So we have a lot more real work or right in front of us work that will be coming up in 2026. As well as this issue. So that's just a concept. We'll talk about that at the end of the meeting, but Patty.
Yeah, I'm going to bring us back on track with the management plan for the intercept lot. I think we should move it forward to October, but by then the county may have a list of options and opportunities that we can discuss that'll clarify the overnight parking, the permitting, the other uses and opportunities we have out there. And that'll give us something to then fold into a management plan with enforcement and oversight, maintenance, et cetera. So I think we should move it forward to October, and hopefully by then the county will know if we own it or not, and whether opportunities we have to solve multiple problems with parking and infrastructure, et cetera, out there.
I think
And
that's
so that's what I would recommend we move forward today for October, rather than this.
Well said, Patty. I think that's right, because as your manager has said, I think there really may be some opportunities for some
Great
revenue.
opportunities, we just have to flesh them out a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. But in general, well, who's not called?
Well, I just have a request for that, because if we're going to need to make a decision about specific things when we move it forward, I really would like to make sure that we have, information, recommendation from staff. All of these decisions will already have been made, so that's going to clear some of that up. But I just feel like we need all of the pieces so that we can actually, decide on these things. So-
Agreed. And taking off of Tom's comment, is there kind of a straw poll, nod of heads that we appreciate this work, we like that we have some professional recommendations, and we'd like to move forward with a management plan with the county's input and agreement and information that comes back to us. Is that
Yes.
kind of where we're all
I
at?
think that's good, and I know that it's a public hearing, and I have a feeling somebody wants to make a comment.
Is this a public hearing on this item?
It was because we were asking for a recommendation that involves money.
Okay.
It's
Well, you're
still
not
not-
getting money today, so we already settled
back in a
that.
couple months. But it's
But,
still
yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you, Patty. Public hearing, Tony, you would like to make a 3-minute comment? Thank you.
I would. First off, I'd like to say, for the record, my name is Tony Kronberg, and in your bylaws, organizational for the Elected Officials Transportation Committee, you are bound by your agreement that you have to have regular meetings. Regular meetings is usually like once a month, every couple of months, and that has not happened with the E.O.T.C. With that being said, that you have a wonderful opportunity with Brush Creek Park and Ride. It is the entrance to Aspen and Snowmass, home of 4 spectacular ski areas, a wonderful Snowmass village, Highlands, Buttermilk, the airport. We need to make it the best that we can. I've worked security for at least 15 years out at Brush Creek Park and Ride. I was security on the raft of buses. I have probably worked 50 different events managing the parking and transportation out at the airport. When I'm one of those workers, I've done overnight security in Aspen and Snowmass, where I have to park at Brush Creek Park and Ride. I take the bus to where I need to go. My shift does not get off until the morning. I have to leave my car there, as there is no parking but when I come in at night to park, either in Snowmass or Aspen. That parking lot is crucial to how your communities work. The reason why is semi-trucks at night, when they get done here in Aspen, there's no place for them to park. They're not allowed to park in Brush Creek Park and Ride. So where do they go? Rifle, Parachute. That is the closest overnight parking. What I would like for you to do is expand your thinking as to how this can become one of our jewels in our whole community, our resort and our community. And are you concerned about the messy vitality that's out there? Or do we have rapes, assaults, murders? What kind of crime do we have out there? One of the hardest things for me when I work these events, I'm so proud of our communities, especially art shows, fashion shows, whatever people come in, and the workers that work these things, they don't have a place to go. They can't afford the rooms in Carbondale, Glenwood, and like this past weekend with the Palm Festival, there was no accommodations. The closest one was Parachute. And these are people that work here, and they have to drive to Parachute. They bring people into work. What I would love to see happen is that you really take a look at the functionality of Brush Creek Park and Ride, and that you make an area so that people can, whether it's a permit or whatnot, that they can go there and stay there for 2 or 3 nights. They usually have campers, they're not dirt bags, they're not the homeless, they're not the drunks, they're not the alcoholics, they don't go and rape people out there. They're hard-working, low-income people, but they are crucial to how our communities function. Then the other thing that I wanted to bring up, and this is something that for years I thought would be a great idea, going up to Snowmass Village, how many times do those semis go off the road? And then you can't get your deliveries, and they block the road. If we could use that as a transfer point, so you have the big semis that park in Brush Creek Park and Ride, and they have the little bitty shuttles that come in, and you do the transfer, that's happening right now. But that should be one of the functionalities. But you have a wonderful opportunity to make Brush Creek Park and Ride a true gem, and to really make it function.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
But thank you so much.
Okay, so we are not taking a vote on spending money on the Park and Ride Management Plan. We've heard some good public comment and some comments from the board. We will see that come back as a first item on the October agenda, so that if there are funding decisions made, they can be built into the budget. Or that we'll have decided that, and you'll have a placeholder in the budget for that.
If I could get some clarification on direction. So we have these next steps, but we're not ready to vote on those tonight. We want to resolve the C.DOT transfer issue. Also, Kelly, you mentioned a conversation about homelessness that's going on right now. I would certainly check in with both of those items when we come back in October. But between now and then, should we convene the task force and the stakeholder group so that we have more information to bring back to you all in October to vote on these with the funding request?
I don't know that we're going to be able to form the task force until we know what's really happening with the county and the lot. But I think that perhaps this conversation should go through the county manager and the city manager about what, how is it unfolding? And then we can all think about who should be in a task force. And I think we need to start defining what the task force real roles would be. Is it to review the wayfinding signage? Is it to suggest the wayfinding signage? It's just a little vague as to what they would do. I mean, I look at improve the special event permitting process, and I think that both the city and the county have special event review boards, and they should get together and talk about what that would be. I mean, I would not see that as being the elected officials doing, maybe approving or hearing from those groups, but it's the sheriffs and the special event committees that are already doing the permitting in the first place for these events. They should probably be part of integrating the parking plan.
I would suggest then in October, you bring us back some information as to the types of committees you want to form and what issues you want them to address. And that should be part of the package for October.
One example is the agreement we have with C.DOT now, which we could maybe change it, I don't know, is the non-proprietary business use of the lot. In the past, we have allowed, for example, party buses to park out there, and we charged them a little bit of money. But that's not happening now anymore out there because it was sort of, we weren't sure if there was a RFP process, for example, to allow any business to park their business vehicles out there. So that is a question that we really need to look at. There's rafting outfitting companies that mobilize out there, and that would be part of this group that would advise us.
I agree, and I think we should list all the issues, as you've just described, that the task force or the management company is going to have to look for direction on, and that we then give that direction. But it's just kind of coming up one thing at a time right now, as opposed to a nice list of things that the management company or the county, should they be overtaking this, should consider. And I think that's a real opportunity to look at what could be the potential revenue generators for the lot. And, you know, when I look at the numbers that on an average day, we're seeing 150 cars parked, but we have 400 spaces. And we have other land we could pave in the future, so we get to full capacity at those 400 places. I think we should start thinking about what other community uses or beneficial uses that would be a permit, a fee, a revenue generator, and solve other issues we're seeing. So,
Okay, thank you. That's clear.
thank you. Thank you, everyone, on that. I think we now have a presentation on the entrance to Aspen reevaluation, just to update people. And this is actually, in fact, Jen Uten's last meeting. And so there are cookies in the back and some other snacks if anybody would like some, but I'm going to present this honorary cookie to Jen, saying best of luck with your future endeavors. And thank you sincerely from all of us for all that you've done to bring us to this point.
Hang that on the wall, right?
I don't trust it. Wait,
There's a whole tray back there.
you're riding the bus to Longmont, right?
From Glenwood, like, yeah, I don't know if that's going to work.
What's that bus? The
The bus thing.
Mustang. Steve Child will be on it with her.
Oh, yeah.
Alrighty, hopefully it's going to work here. There we go. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Jen Uten. I'm a project manager in the city manager's office at the city of Aspen. Here to provide a brief update about the preferred alternative reevaluation process, and to talk a little bit about where we are. Aspen City Council in July adopted 2 resolutions, one giving direction to staff to move forward with the reevaluation of the EIS and the record of decision, and then another doing a change order for our contract with Jacobs Engineering to initiate that work. So the preferred alternative, I think everybody in this room probably knows it pretty well, but it is the culmination of the EIS process that happened in the 90s and is in the record of decision. It's a variation of the modified direct alternative that was evaluated in the draft SEIS. And so the preferred alternative was what came out of that process. It's a combination of highway and intersection improvements and then also TDM. It's called transportation management in the record. And a number of elements of the record of decision have been completed, including the Maroon Creek Bridge. I won't read this slide to you, but there are a number of elements of the record that have been put in place, and I think you know them all well. The Owl Creek Road realignment is another one that you're very familiar with. But there are some elements of the preferred alternative that have not yet been implemented, including, of course, the new bridge over the Castle Creek, and also a new highway alignment that goes through the Merle open space with 2 general purpose lanes, 1 in each direction, and 2 exclusive bus lanes in the interim until such time as light rail funding is available. And then the reclaiming of the existing highway space between Cemetery Lane and a little bit close to the roundabout, but not exactly close to the roundabout. You can see it on this slide, that would be reclaimed as open space. And additionally, there's a land bridge and wildlife corridor that is created. So there's some land exchange that happens, and part of the whole record is this idea that there's a continuous corridor there that can have a trail on it or connection of Nordic, lots of opportunities there. Here's another look at it. This is the phased, so the first phase that has the bus lanes, shows a little bit what I was trying to describe as better in a visual, that basically the new alignment would start sometime after the roundabout and cross Merolt, and then would cross Castle Creek at the Main Street alignment. I'll just give you a second to look at that slide. And here's one more look at it, which is the visualization of the touchdown at 7th and Main, which has, again, a general purpose lane in each direction, and in this iteration, a managed bus lane in each direction. So I'll just note that there is assumed a stoplight here at this intersection. I don't know that it necessarily is depicted in a way that you can see it in this iteration, but that's one element that is assumed in the preferred alternative. And just to talk a little bit about timeline, so I mentioned that we did a change order with our contract with Jacobs Engineering, and they have already been starting on this work. We've been meeting staff and CDOT and FHWA and Jacobs to kind of get alignment on where we're going next. This is the proposed project timeline. Will take about 15 months to get through this process. That's long for a reevaluation, and there's a couple of reasons that that's happening. One, it's not required that we have public engagement in a reevaluation, and we are assuming 2 open house meetings as part of this effort. And then also the idea that there are some potential modifications that we could consider as part of this process. So those are physical or operational changes, refinements to the PA, which would still keep the intent of the PA as a variation of the pavement right-of-way width, slight changes to the horizontal alignment. They're intended to be in service to efficiencies and not necessarily big changes.
Redesign.
Yeah, it's not a redesign, and it's not looking at a different alignment. So ideas could be potentially changing the platform width, maybe narrowing that up. That's an example of something that could happen. Or maybe a slight change to the way that the roundabout works. So that's part of what's driving that long timeline here, is that it is both the kind of the identification of those refinements, and then also making sure that those are fully evaluated as part of this process. And so there's some modeling that is required for those different potential changes. So that is part of what is making this timeline long. I think the last time we spoke, we said that we were still looking for the actual technical memorandum that were part of the original record of decision. They found them at FHWA.
Yes.
So that's good news.
We won't have to repeat those same studies. That was the crux.
There still will be, of course.
A little bit updating.
Yeah, some evaluation of those studies. Obviously, the intent of a reevaluation is to understand if the record is still valid. And so there will still be those efforts, but it is much better to have the underlying documents, so we're excited about that. This is another kind of process map look at what that schedule looks like. So starting the reevaluation, doing those technical analysis, consideration of those design refinements, and then determining whether or not there are significant impacts. And if there aren't, then there would be a complete reevaluation. And then the permission to proceed with going to design docs. If there are significant impacts that are discovered, then we would be in another NEPA process. A supplemental EIS is what we've identified here in this iteration.
And then here's that
Sorry.
scope.
Excuse me.
Sorry.
Question?
Timeline on that part, I'm just, point to me on the timeline, because I don't see any dates on this. So I want to connect this to the timeline. Say there's a,
Have the dates.
this one has the dates.
Yeah, this one
So
has
where
the
would
date.
possibly the new EIS become triggered? Where would that?
Well, it wouldn't be a new EIS, it'd be a supplemental.
Where would that get triggered?
So that's, kind of at the end of those environmental studies that go through August of 2026. And then it's in that last few months that are identified here where, although it certainly could come up sooner in the process, but I think in this,
We're anticipating it could go, it happened then, but it could happen sooner.
it certainly could happen sooner.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
And then this is kind of the elements of the scope. So we talked about this a little bit. There were traffic counts that were pulled in July. That was something that CDOT was looking for because that's the highest peak, as I think everybody in this room knows. Updating our origin and destination study. Identifying when those public and stakeholder outreach meetings will happen. There are 2 open house meetings. There will also be project team meetings that will be ongoing. So we met with FHWA and CDOT today, and that we were calling the first of those project management team meetings. And then there will be other outreach to stakeholders and task force members throughout the process. We don't have that granular level of detail on the schedule yet, but when someone else is sitting in this seat, you'll get an update in October about that, and probably we'll be making sure that you have that information as it moves forward, because obviously there will be folks from your teams who are involved in that. Evaluation of those design refinements and conceptual design and survey. So there's a number of elements of that scope. We identified grant support here. The cost-benefit analysis is a heavy lift, and so we've put that in the scope here for Jacobs to do if there are federal dollars that we want to pursue. And then ultimately that coordination with the agencies for the actual reevaluation work. That is what I have. One other element that I will mention, that timeline had a star saying that we were going to send a letter to CDOT and FHWA, and we'll actually deliver it to CDOT and they will share it out, officially asking for that reevaluation. We have a draft, it's not finalized, and we have, as staff, had some conversations about whether the BOCC and Town of Snowmass Council would like to sign on to that letter. I would love to have distributed a draft today, and we're just not there yet. But again, if
It might be upcoming.
upcoming effort, so we'll be sharing that out at some point here in the near future. But essentially, just asking formally for that reevaluation to start.
Thank you, Jen. I have just a few quick comments to add. As we entered into the new contract with Jacobs, I had asked Jen and others, what about additional work? Is there, are we, in particularly, where is our future workforce going to come from and what is our future employment demands going to be? And I was told that we're completing the work for the 1, 2, 3 state survey to be able to get any of their affordable housing dollars, and that would answer a lot of those type of questions. But I want to let Snowmass and Pickens County know that I am certainly open to, if there's other types of requests of augmentation information that we should be gathering during this period, funnel them to us. I'll see if the rest of my council agrees, and we'll spend the money with Jacobs to get that information. But I want this to be thorough and complete. And I know that in Jacobs, they were giving us this estimate of increased traffic based on employment. And at least myself, I see very radical changes happening to where our employee base will come from over the next 15 or 20 years as people retire in their free market homes throughout the Mid-Valley. So we are going to try to augment and be as informed as possible beyond what, might be the federal requirements for a reevaluation. It's not necessarily on Linda's back here or anything like that, but I did want to put that out there. If the county has questions they'd like to see answered, or Snowmass Village additional information, please let us know. The other thing I think that's relatively obvious to all of us is we're going to have to work on some interim solutions and short-term measures to deal with the traffic and the congestion until we actually have any infrastructure built and those monies secured. And that some of that work is happening with the 21st Century Transportation Committee. Other of that work is happening with RAFTA and the free fare experience and trying to figure out how we get more people on transit and reduce more single occupant vehicles. So that's where there's going to be a lot of adjunct work to this kind of formal process as I see it.
And to that, I would just add that the effort that's happening at Pickens County with the 2050 effort, Jacobs has been looking at those technical documents, and they intend to meet with the planning staff here. So I think they're gathering that information about future growth.
Yeah.
I have I don't know if it's a question, but maybe it's just a point of clarification. So if you proceed with the reevaluation, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And the reevaluation at some point perhaps determines there are significant findings of difference, changes, would you then have to go to a supplemental EIS? And if so, what's the time frame that it extends from your time frame of November 2026?
I think it depends on when that determination is made. I think a lot of this effort certainly will inform that.
You can have a heads up as you move along.
Yeah.
So there's a possibility, hopefully not a probability, that at the end of the day, you might have to go back to a supplemental EIS, which would then, I just want the public to take a little bit longer in getting to a point of actual planning for construction, engineering, et cetera.
Yeah, and I think, Jacobs has said, when they were sitting in the seat here and presenting to City Council recently, that if it's looking that way, then we would, regroup and address that as
The reason I
appropriate.
ask is because we're kind of in the same kind of circumstances at the airport.
Yeah.
So, but the other question I have is funding, not for all this process, but when are you going to start determining or talking about how you're going to fund construction and et cetera of the actual project?
So I think that there are some dollars that we still have that are unspent that can probably go toward design. So, get to the end of this process,
Right.
we have, a concept, a conceptual level design, 10% design. There are still some dollars, probably not sufficient dollars, in the Aspen budget to move that in the out years, to move those into construction documents. I think that is super important as we look to federal dollars and to try to get into other funding mechanisms. And I think we haven't quite yet identified is a large number. It's north of someplace in the ballpark of $150 million.
That's nothing.
So
Compared to what
certainly having those design docs, having, that
Right.
schematic level design helps as we pursue other funding sources.
Because
federal
there's a
funding
lot
sources.
going on at the federal level with the surface transportation bill
Yeah.
and funding opportunities. And I'm sitting on the NACO, thank you, Rachel, for getting me involved in that, Transportation Policy Group. So if I hear of anything that might be worth, I'll pass it on to city manager or staff or
Yeah.
the council.
That's really helpful, Patty. We really appreciate that. And basically, Jacobs told us at the last meeting, and they may have said this at the E.O.T.C, but I'm not sure, the meetings start to run together, that, hey, we might find out we need a supplemental in the first 6 months. It may not take till that February date for them to make that determination, but we would be a supplemental of the original ROD as opposed to a whole new EIS, so it's still a little more constrained. And then the second thing, as you mentioned, until we really have a plan of some sort and some engineering, we cannot get into the Colorado State CDOT transportation planning region priority list.
Right.
We're on the list at some real low level in that they know something's going to have to happen here. But until you're closer to really being ready to shovel some dirt, they're just not going to put you on that
I
list.
sit on the TPR too with Brian Pettit.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to starting to try to hit some of those meetings once we have something real to offer. So, but we appreciate your help with all that. And are there other questions from Snowmass or the county for, come on, we got to stump her, it's her last meeting.
Can you give me a ballpark number of what the whole project's going to cost?
150 million.
She did. Definitely ballpark.
Ballpark. It depends on the price of steel, copper, and aluminum tariffs, I think, at some point, just like everything else anymore.
Give me that number to the penny. I'll keep her here for a while.
Okay. Again, are there any other questions for Jen? No. Thank you very much. And again, as anybody and everybody has said, you've done great work for this community, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. This was a lovely meeting to end on.
All right, we now move on the agenda to the members' updates. Alyssa and Snowmass, you have some,
What do you want to know? So much.
whatever you want to let us know as member updates related to transportation.
Okay, I can share that. We, this summer, Sam's sitting in here, and we, part of the village shuttle experience to areas that don't have bus service in Snowmass, there is now more of like an on-demand shuttle. And it's gone very well. I mean, Sam said it's being used. I see it all over the village. I don't know how many total we have. Is there? Yeah, is there 3? Yeah, 3 vehicles. And so that's been, I think, really great for people that are in a non-service shuttle area, just to either get to WeCycle. And speaking of WeCycle, we have our electric bikes, as does everybody else. So that I've seen them
They
used a
conquered
lot.
the hills.
Yes.
They've conquered the
Yes.
incline.
But
Popular
people,
than the regular.
yes, I would say the only sort of misunderstanding is that people don't get that you're not supposed to ride to Aspen. That's not the intent.
Because after 30
Um,
minutes, you're.
Yes, because after 30 minutes, you
Start to
get,
get
you get
charged.
heavily
Yeah.
docked. So I think that's an
You need better
educational piece.
notification on the stand.
It does say it there, but I've had a few residents complain, and
It's a different artwork on the WeCycle.
there is a different artwork, but there, I guess Mirta said there has been, I think, one person who made it into Aspen under 30 minutes. But,
Not Greg Postman.
So we could make it a contest.
They
or
ride
something.
over Shale Bluffs, or did they go Owl Creek?
Sure.
I'm sure probably Owl Creek, but I did, resident, he was very upset because he got a very big bill from WeCycle. And he said he was going to call them, and we had an argument. I said, "You're not supposed to ride into Aspen." He said, "Yes, we are." "No, you're not." So that educational piece, I think, is taking a little bit. But, yeah, I think those are the main 2 things, probably going with transportation, right?
Okay.
Yeah, but it's been great, and
Part of it.
thank you for the presentation on entrance to Aspen. We briefly talked about it at our meeting, and, we look forward to being asked to participate and contribute to what you guys are doing. We really appreciate
Absolutely.
For sure.
the opportunity to give input.
We're connected at the hip.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got to happen.
Yeah, and I told Rachel this morning too, when we went down to RAFTA this morning, it was very eye-opening to see all of the huge trucks that were turning at Smith Hill. Usually I see, a few cars here and there, but it was a very, very, very long line.
It's been backing up out into the
Yes.
travel lane.
Yes, and that
regularly.
seemed very dangerous to me.
I'm sure you're aware of that. That's why
yeah.
you're looking at a new
I
intersection.
couldn't believe how long it was. If I wasn't driving, I would have videoed it. That's how long it was. And we had a conversation at RAFT about it this morning. So it's really something we need to be paying attention to.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is what the term integrated transportation plan's about. And I don't know in the county how to deal with the safety on McLean Flats, but you start to think, should they reduce the speed limit? Should they put down some speed bumps so that people don't see it as the shortcut that they do now? But that's a bigger question and a lot of conversation in the future.
Well, and I can just update a little bit of that from the county. So we had our second reading yesterday, accepting a grant for the full cost of the safety improvements at Highway 82 in Smith Hill, where we're going to be closing that cut across and turning it into a Michigan left. So, many thanks to CDOT. The state gave us all the funding they had in the pot, and when they usually divvy it up more across the state to cover the full cost of that. And then the Lazy Glen improvements, where we'll be adding a turn lane coming left out of Lazy Glen, where there isn't one now, and they're just merging very scarily with the sun in their eyes, trying to get over onto the eastbound lane. So, we're looking forward to moving forward on both of those in the coming, I think 2027 was the year where we're hoping to get it.
Let me ask, were you able to get CDOT improvements on both of those areas on State Highway 82 without reopening the record of decision from Basalt to Buttermilk? Did they have to do a finding of no significant or anything that just you were able to work on the pinch points and improving intersections without reopening the record of decision?
I don't know exactly the steps, but it didn't take very long.
Okay.
So whatever it wasn't any huge redesigns of our current corridor in order to move that quickly.
Some intersection improvements.
The money came out of their safety improvement program.
Thank you. That's really informative. Going forward,
I have
other county
I have a real
transportation?
quick one. Northwest Colorado Council of Governments is looking at having their next meeting in this area somewhere.
Yes, in the Roaring Fork Valley.
And one of the topics, we try and do local topics, were your downtowner, your shuttle and snowmass, and what Basalt uses. Everybody was interested in how it worked. So we may be contacting each of your transportation departments and Basalt to find out if we can have speakers present at the COG meeting to share your stories on how it works, what you found, ridership, et cetera. So that'll be at the next COG meeting in October? Is that what this was planned?
Yeah.
Is it September?
Well, send us the dates on that. Maybe more of
Yeah.
us will be able to attend since it's here locally. Kelly, you have a comment?
Yeah, just a little to share from a director's point of view. I want to give a little illustration of a day in the life of a single mom with a broken down car traveling through the Roaring Fork Valley. So I left my house and took a wee cycle on public trails over to the airport and got on a BRT and took the BRT down to Basalt, where I took the underpass over to get to Basalt Elementary School, pick up my kids, called the Basalt downtowner, had the downtowner drive us over to the softball fields to go to softball practice. At the end of softball practice, called the downtowner back that came and picked us up, took us back to the BRT station, and rode it back to the airport and walked home to Burlingame. Wow. So, yeah.
It's
a lot
like
of-
a job.
a lot of integration of a lot of different departments and a lot of different systems that made for a very pleasant, lack of interruption in life that might have otherwise really thrown me for a loop. So.
She did it all in 30 minutes or less.
I bet. Wait,
It's called Basalt Connect down
Basalt
there, is
Connect.
their version of the downtown is Basalt Connect.
Two Rivers.
Well, it was lovely.
Is that Two Rivers Connect?
That's Glenwood's.
That's Glenwood.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Transportation-wise, I think the big thing on our, on the calendar is October, November, free RAFTA bus fare months. RAFTA is going to be doing a study through surveys conducted on the buses. If you take advantage during those months, please take the survey. We're trying to gather as much data as we can with the hope of continuing free bus services, starting with off-seasons. So there's a good chance we'll be doing it again in the spring or the fall of '26 and then the following spring. We're trying to determine that. It's funded this time around. The cost is about $550,000 for 2 months. Dave, am I leaving anything out? I think that's the most exciting thing is RAFT is going free. And the big question is for everybody in the community who's driving their car is what would you do with all the free time you'd have if you could get on a bus and read a book? And how much money would you save if you take the bus instead of drive?
I think they said crochet today.
Or,
Crochet.
yeah, you can
Learn to
knit a
crochet.
hat, you can learn to crochet, you
What
can read
happens
a
if you
book.
can't crochet?
You can learn.
Guess you can't ride the bus for
They
free.
have Wi-Fi, so you could learn, possibly watch a video. It's a fascinating thing. There will be a lot of promotion starting up fairly soon for this fall free RAFTA service. The entire intent is to get more people on the bus, and we're all very excited about it.
Well, and I agree with that entirely, and we're all excited. The other really valuable thing it's going to tell us, at least at some level, is how many more park and ride places do you really need if you're going to capture more people from their original destination point, how many more buses you might need, how many more drivers you might need. So what is the real capacity to gear up to that on a full season basis, on a year-round basis? And so it's going to be, it's really, we appreciate from RAFTA the support from the E.O.T.C. to make this happen. Any other BOCC or Snowmass comments? I'll turn back to my city council members. John?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, while we're having this E.O.T.C. meeting, we're talking about the entrance to Aspen, we're talking about Brush Creek Park and Ride, and we're anticipating construction on the lumber yard, the entrance to Aspen, and the airport. I want to keep it in everybody's mind that we really need to think about this two-bridge trail connection from Brush Creek Park and Ride to the ABC. It's a missing link. It's going to help people get out of their cars, especially with these upcoming construction issues. So I just think we should all be moving forward on this project because if we don't do it now, it's going to be more expensive later and we will regret it.
Thank you for that, John. Do you have anything?
I was just thinking, hearing everyone talk, I went to the music festival this weekend, which was a no-car festival, and it worked. If you tell people not to drive, people took the bus, they walked, they took their bikes, and it was pretty seamless. And so I thought it was a really interesting experiment. Just wanted to throw that out.
And it worked. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you for that. The only things I want to add, just in general, is that the information about when the airport and if the airport is going to be built is really valuable information to all of us. We're seeing preliminary RAFTA budgets this morning, and I mentioned that, well, I know the city's cutting back our sales tax collection recommendations for 2027 by about 15%. And it just informs all of our future budgets. I know the Chamber of Commerce is looking at the same sort of things of how do we get people from the Eagle Airport or the Grand Junction Airport to Aspen? How do we continue to market this? So just keep us informed if the grants come through, if anything gets changed, if it moves to 2028, anything like that's just really helpful. I'm hoping it goes forward. You've been working on it for a decade or more. I mean, so I understand the challenges that have existed, and we're excited about that information. The second thing I would say is that I do want to see a nod of heads if members agree who are remaining that we should have a retreat in 2026 and be able to refocus our priorities. It doesn't have to be away from town. It could be maybe 3/4 of a day. I don't know. But we need to reprioritize, and we need to think about how we're engaged with all of these things coming down the pike, whether it's the airport construction and lumberyard construction, whether the pinch points, whether it's the 21st century, whether it's the reevaluation. All these things are converging at the same time. And E.O.T.C. has done really valuable work, and others know. I was there at the beginning, and we met 3 times every 3 weeks for probably a year and a half to settle on, yes, we should manage transportation, yes, these were our goals, and yes, we're going to ask the public for a half penny of support to be able to implement these sort of goals. So this would be something that Linda can start to think about to prepare and include in her 2026 budget. if we're all interested in really kind of having the chance. It just strikes me, and I realize that perhaps in the past, the last council of Aspen was working so hard on the entrance that for somehow they couldn't make E.O.T.C meetings happen as regularly as they should have, and there was kind of honestly, literally from the pandemic on, it's just been a little more shaky about having consistency and priorities. But we, for something as crucial to all of us as the transportation systems are, dedicating only 8 hours a year is just not sufficient unless we have really prioritized our work and gone forward. I mean, I was thinking, should I ask that we have more meetings in a year or longer meetings? And then Alyssa was the one who said to me, no, we really should have a retreat, and we really should have that time to focus in and be able to give really clear direction to our staff and do that sort of real better management of this process, because it's incredibly important. And I know some people have gotten frustrated and they're like, let's just give RAFTA all the E.O.T.C money and be done. And it's like, no, how are we going to build the garage? How are we going to take care of any of these other issues? We're part of it, we are an adjunct to RAFTA, and they already have 81% of our half penny. So how do we make it all work better? So anyhow, I am going to ask for comments on that, or then just a nod of heads that yes, we'd like to move forward with some sort of retreat for this organization to refocus in 2026. Is that a good idea?
Yeah.
Okay. You got some thumbs up on that, so we're going to move that forward. And did anyone else have any closing comments Kelly?
As you were talking more, I was remembering more that I could share.
Okay.
So just to follow up to John's comment, we will be having a public hearing related to the two-bridge idea with our open space team. And I don't know all of the details and format, but I expect it will happen before our next E.O.T.C meeting. So just want to flag that for anyone of interest. And then since our last E.O.T.C meeting, so we had won $2 million in federal grant money, and then we lost it, and then it came back in a different iteration. And so we've won this $2 million grant for multimodal design at the airport. We also have 2 committees that are being seated within our airport advisory board relative to the multimodal design endeavors and the terminal design endeavors. And we're going to have a lot of opportunity for stakeholder input this fall. So just stay tuned on that. If you want to weigh in on aspects of airport design, there will be a lot of public opportunities to do so.
And the time frame, John and Rachel and everyone, is still determined to be like April to November 2027.
Your mic on.
We're already working with other airports for transit, so we can keep the economy going as much as possible, planning ahead. And it's my understanding, in talking with Alyssa and understanding with the city, that everybody in town is planning to do their projects, clean out their basements at their shops in town, remodel the bathrooms and their storage areas during that time frame. So if anything, you may be gaining some revenue from permits during that time frame.
Okay. Very good. Well, that's good, and we all just have to keep each other informed.
Yeah.
Whatever we're doing. And speaking of which, next Monday at 4 o'clock in this room on the 18th, we're going to have a work session with the Aspen City Council on how to potentially manage the traffic congestion in the West End better. It's really gotten to be a public safety issue at this point. Neighbors can't back out of their driveway. As we've seen from the Jacobs report, we have 34% of the traffic that enters town during the day tries to leave town off of Power Plant Road. And so if anybody wants to attend that or offer suggestions and answers, please come. So that's pretty much it for our meeting today. Does anybody have a final comment? I would accept a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, it's been made and seconded by the county. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Good job, Rachel.
What? I know.
Are they?
It actually ended on.
Not bad.
No.
Thank